Welcome to episode 47 of the Family Geekery podcast. I'm Amber.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Danny.
And today, we're going to talk about everyone's favorite Squirrel Girl.
The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl.
Yeah. But first, what happened this week? What'd you guys do?
I played a new game called Reventure. I have it on Steam, and it's really cool. It's like a roguelike, but there's 100 endings to it. Whoa. And every time you die, you end one of the endings. Every time you die uniquely, I guess. So let's say you run, you get hit by one of the bad guys. Well, then it has like a little cutscene of you getting killed by the bad guy. And then it tells a little story about what happens to you. And then you come back and you start over in the same place. And then let's say you go and you trip over a rock or something. That may be ending number 2. So there's 100 endings. I've gotten through like 40 of them so far. But it's very funny and it's very fun. You know, it's a light platforming roguelike. So I would suggest anybody that finds Reventure, check it out.
Cool. Danny?
How about you guys?
Well, new Fortnite Battle Pass. So, been grinding some Fortnite, getting my Victory Royales. Other than that...
The Fortnite Gwitty. That's not a list.
Other than that, last week I had a class and my school has like a special collections in our library. It's basically like the art. It's like their special art exhibit. And they pulled some stuff out for us and they had a Avengers comic from, I think, 1973. I don't know how rare it was, but it looked pretty cool.
Nice.
Neat.
I haven't been doing very much. Just my usual Overwatch, grinding that battle pass. But today I decided to mess around with ChatGPT just to see if I could build Magic the Gathering commander decks. Didn't do a great job unless I like baby stepped it through it, and even then it was like giving me artifacts as creatures or instants and sorceries as creatures. But you know, it was kind of cool just to see what it would come up with and what cards it would suggest. So I had some fun playing around with that today.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right, so we're kicking off this episode about the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, who got her debut in 1991 in a strange Marvel Superheroes number 8 issue that Danny's going to talk about.
Yeah. It was the Marvel Superheroes Winter Special X-Men. And it is Squirrel Girl's first appearance. And it starts with Iron Man just flying around a forest because he was testing his collision avoidance radar. So just flying around a forest, and we see this creature kind of looking over him, and it pounces on Iron Man, and he's like, "What is this? Just attacked me." And Iron Man's like, "Oh, you don't know who you're messing with. Like, I can take you." And he sees who it is, and he's like, "This thing has fur?" It's like, what's this fur ball getting on me for?
He also gender assumed the whole time that he's fighting. Kept calling her a he until he was unmasked or unblinded at least.
Yep. So then that's Squirrel Girl who reveals herself. in a very jump scare way. She looks very different, but across the comics.
She looks kind of like a clown, like maybe
She
from It.
does. She does look like a clown.
She's got like eye makeup, and I can see why they didn't keep the eye makeup in the next iteration.
Mm-hmm.
Do squirrels have diamond-shaped eye holes?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
I mean, I could see if it was like a raccoon, that'd be
Yeah.
having the mask like that. But this is just weird. It doesn't look like a squirrel face.
It also doesn't
No.
look like a squirrel tail. She looks more like a monkey.
She does. She does look like a monkey. But she has her big, like, buck squirrel teeth. And Iron Man's like, Squirrel Girl. And he's like, okay, nice name, it rhymes, but why are you bothering me? And she's like, I wanted to show you what I can do so that I can become your partner. She wanted to be Iron Man's partner and join the Avengers. And she's like, I live around here, so I can work and also be home for dinner because she is very young. And he's like, how old are you? And she's like, I'm 15. And he's like, yeah, no, thank you. Like, I don't want to be responsible for that.
Which is funny because, like, in the movies, Iron Man's like, "Hey, Spider-Man, you're what? Like, you're like 16? Yeah,
14.
come to space. Come die in space."
Mm-hmm.
He told him not to go on that spaceship.
And so Squirrel Girl is like, well, let me show you my powers because I have plenty of powers and she's a mutant. So first, she jumps really high like a squirrel. Squirrels jump really high. They got to get to those trees. And Iron Man's like, well, Hulk can jump, so okay, what else can you do? Then she pulls out her little hand blade. Like she has a little mini Wolverine blade in her hand.
A knuckle spike.
Yeah, knuckle spike. Which do squirrels have knuckle spikes?
No clue.
Squirrel girls do.
And she also has finger claws for climbing. And Iron Man's like, well, Wolverine has better knuckle spikes. So what else you got? And then she shows him her teeth. And she's like, well, I can chew things really well. And he's like, okay. And you have a tail. And she's like, yeah, I do. And she just makes a joke that her mom thinks it's cute. So she's still asking, like, hey, can I be an Avenger? And he's like, well, I don't know. Like, he's not really impressed yet. And she's like, okay, well, I got this other thing. I can talk to squirrels. So she starts doing her little chitty chit chuck. And he's like, okay, I get it. You can stop. She's like, oh, but that sounded like a squirrel. And then all of a sudden, all her little squirrel friends starts to attack Iron Man. And he's like, wait, these are from you? And she's like, yeah, I can talk to them. And Iron Man's like, okay, well, X-Men would be interested in you, but not me. And she's like, well, I don't want to be a mutant because they're stuck up like Kitty Pryde.
Yeah,
So
she's got a problem with Kitty Pryde.
This is Kitty Pryde. Got some teen drama. So Iron Man's just trying to like pass her on to other people. He's like, well, I can introduce you to Captain America. He's open to new partners. He's just trying to get her to go talk to other people. And then she's like, oh, I can't believe you're rejecting me. And he's like, I don't really need a partner. And he's like, well, I can't be responsible for you. You're young. Even though, like we said, he likes Spider-Man, who's also young.
You should word that differently.
Anyways, she's like, well, I've had a super fight before. I fought someone. And he's like, oh, cool. Who? And she was like, well, it's an armored guy, and he's green. He's like gray armor, and Iron Man's like, oh no, Doctor Doom? And then Doctor Doom shows up, and he like lasers Iron Man or something, and like
Full on
sizzles.
quick draws on him.
Yeah, like
Quick draws out of
sizzles
a ray pistol.
sizzles his suit. And so Squirrel Girl's like, what the heck? And he takes both of them into his little Doctor Doom ship, his Doom ship, and he kidnaps them. So Doctor Doom just has Iron Man and Squirrel Girl in his little ship, and they're like, well, we got to get out of here. But Iron Man has this like energy field around him, so he can't really move that much. He's like, okay, Squirrel Girl, you're gonna have to do this. And she's like, she pulls out her nut stash. She's like, well, here, I have some nuts you can maybe use to help. He's like, you don't have any tools? She's like, no, I just have a nut stash. Macadamia nuts, peanuts, all the kinds of nuts. She's really prepared. But Dr. Doom shows up and he's like, well, I'm going to dispose of your bodies in the ocean. And Squirrel Girl's like, but we're not dead yet. And he's like, oh, that's right. So then he puts some spikes in their room and it's going to collapse and suffocate them. And Squirrel Girl's like, well, I do have friends, so I'm warning you. He's like, okay, yeah, squirrels, whatever. Go die now. But then Iron Man's like, okay, well, now you gotta show us, now you gotta get us out of here. And she's like, well, what am I supposed to do? And she sees that the ship is only a little bit above ground. And so she calls for help, her little squirrel help. Does her little squirrel call. And all the squirrels come running and they start to attack Doctor Doom. And so the squirrels come to help and they help them escape from the Doom ship. And Iron Man was gonna go take care of Doom, but Squirrel Girl's like, no, my squirrel friends got it. And so Doctor Doom gets attacked by all the little squirrel friends. And Iron Man and
chewing his wires.
Yeah. Start eating him. Chewing his wires. And they like rip him apart. Take his cloak off. They take his mask off. And little like almost naked Doctor Doom just runs away. And jumps into the like a lake or ocean or something, and Iron Man tries to go after him, and he like goes into the floor, and he's like, well, he escaped, but they have his mask. Little squirrel got his mask, and so Iron Man and Squirrel Girl, they're just talking, and Squirrel Girl's embarrassed, but Iron Man just says that they set his plans back, so he probably won't be showing up anytime soon. And he just tells Squirrel Girl that she should just go to school and finish college, and then she should come back and try to be a superhero. And that's the end.
Yeah, that whole story. Now, this was in like one of those 80-page super special comics that had multiple stories in it. That's why the cover had a lot more people on it than what we saw in this comic. But that whole story was basically Marvel's idea of creating a character so bad to parody the fact that characters have gotten bad. So this was in the early 90s, and they are parodying maybe a little bit of themselves, maybe a little bit of DC about how bad characters can be, and they created one so bad that they could use it as an example of what never to do again.
But Squirrel Girl isn't bad. She's the best.
Right, but her existence for the next 10 years after this issue only happened by being a pattern on Deadpool's boxer shorts. Like he had like a Squirrel Girl patterned boxer shorts in some of his issues. So she didn't have any more comics until, more recently.
I didn't even know she existed, like, in the 90s. I didn't even know. I thought that, like, 2015 or whatever was her first appearance.
Yeah. Yep. But she definitely went from being the butt of a joke to turning out to be a pretty cool character.
Yeah.
I'd like to see how, like, I don't know, the Marvel people were like, how they reacted when someone was like, Squirrel Girl, I'm going to give her a real shot. I want to write an actual comic about her. I wonder how they received that. I mean, obviously, I guess well, since it happened.
Mm-hmm.
So that brings us all the way up to 2015, which is when she gets her first self-titled book, The Unbeatable Squirrel Girl, #1, which Amber is going to bring us through.
Yeah, so this comic starts off with Squirrel Girl sitting in the trees, singing her theme song, which totally isn't to the tune of the Spider-Man theme song. That's not how it goes. And she just like stops a petty theft, beats up some bad guys, calls her Squirrel Army, singing her song the whole time. And then we get some like info, like her real name is Doreen Green. She's got a best friend squirrel named Tippy Toe. And then she says, like, oh, I'm so happy to finally go to college and move out of the Avengers attic because she had been secretly living there for a while. But now she's going to go to college in New York. So she's like, okay, it's time for my secret identity. I've got to, put Squirrel Girl away for a little bit. Gotta be myself. And the way she hides her tail is by just like, yeah, I've got this nice butt. So
she just shoves it in her butt pants.
It in her pants. And she's like, wow, good thing I've got that tail because now it looks like I've got a big butt. So she's carrying her boxes to college because she's got like more strength because she's like got the proportional strength of a squirrel, but she's a human. Well, half human, she's got some squirrel blood in her, she says. So she's carrying all her boxes. This guy runs into her, who's also a student, and his name is Tomas, and he's like, hey, do you need help? And she's like, oh, a totally normal person would totally need help right now. And she drops her boxes. She's like, haha. And then she talks to her squirrel, kind of explains that to her, to Tippy Toe. And then she just decides, you know what? I can carry my boxes. There's nothing in them at all. They're extra boxes to help me move out of college with. So she just runs with all her boxes to her room and meets her roommate, whose name is Nancy. And Nancy loves two things: her cat Mew and knitting. And they're both computer science students. And Doreen Squirrel Girl is like, hey, you have a cat? Isn't that not allowed? And Nancy's like, yeah, but obeying an unjust law is itself unjust. And so Squirrel Girl's like, okay. And then she sees out the window some guy carrying Tippy Toe. And she's like, uh-oh, gotta go. And she changes into her Squirrel Girl outfit in the bathroom and runs outside to save her best friend. In the meantime, she pulls out Deadpool's Guide to Supervillains. She's got trading cards of all these villains that she relies on. And she finds this one is Kraven the Hunter, which I only know because of Marvel Snap. She's like, all right, she gets some background about him. He's like a really good hunter and like a Spider-Man villain. So she's like, yo, what's up? Like, why are you hunting squirrels? Like, put her down. This is my best friend. And Craven's like, nah, like, I'm just gonna hunt this squirrel. Like, I'm gonna kill this squirrel. And so then Squirrel Girl attacks him. They fight a little bit. Then she throws him up into the air and thinks a little. She's like...
She throws him so far up into the air that she has time for...
She has time to, like, brainstorm a couple of different ways. She's like, squirrels in pants, squirrels on head. Like, how should I defeat him? And then, you know, she talks to Tippy Toe, and Tippy Toe's like, you know, he just, like, kicked me. Like, it was just crazy. He was just, like, kicking us for no reason. She's like, oh, maybe I can talk my way out of this. So she catches him on his way back down, and she's like, hey, you know, like, I know you died before and you're back and now you can't die anymore. So what are you doing, like, you know, constantly attacking Spider-Man, and you can't defeat him, and if you know, die any other way, but you can't die, so you can't have, like, a valiant death fighting Spider-Man. You can't hunt Spider-Man well enough, and, like, what are you doing? Like, you're better than this. If you're the best hunter, if you're the most dangerous hunter, then Spider-Man's not who you should be hunting. My squirrels definitely aren't what you should be hunting. So she pulls out more Deadpool's trading cards, and she's like, look at all these other things, like, in the ocean that you could do. Like, since you can't die, you could totally, like, hunt these things in the ocean, like giant squid and the kraken. Like, think about it. You could be the best hunter in the entire world, and, like, I don't think you can do it, but prove me wrong. And he's like, oh my god, you're totally right. Like, I need to prove myself. I need to do this. And so Squirrel Girl's like, yes. And thank you, Kraven, for not killing Tippy Toe. So then she's done with that after talking her way out of, you know, Kraven. She comes back to her room with Nancy, and she's like, hey, Nancy, what about this? What if you meet my friend Tippy Toe? And Nancy's like, huh? But you're the one that said, you know, no pets in the dorm. And Doreen is like, yeah, well, I just learned from a super cool person that obeying an unjust law is itself unjust. And so that starts her and Nancy's, you know, best friendship, because they both have pets now, and they're both silly. And then they see that there's a squirrel tapping on the window, and Tippy Toe is talking to the other squirrel, and Doreen's like, well, it'd be silly if I knew what they were saying, huh? That'd be so silly. And then she goes to the bathroom because Tippy Toe seems a little distraught. She listens and talks to Tippy Toe because she can't do that in front of people to protect her identity. And Tippy Toe says, hey, I heard from the Squirrel Information Network from around the world that there's something coming that's gonna come and destroy the Earth somehow. She's like, what do you mean? Like, how far away is it? She's like, oh, like light years away, but millions and millions of miles into space. And so Squirrel Girl's like, oh, well, we've got plenty of time for that. What's the worst that could happen? And then the next panel, coming next issue, Galactus taking a munch out of Earth. So, and that's the end of that one.
So really far away, nothing to worry about, but he shows up next issue.
I like that one.
She actually talks him out of eating Earth.
Really?
Yeah, somehow she finds out about some other like planet that's got a bunch of trees and has lots of nuts, and she convinced him that it would be a lot more filling than Earth would.
Wow.
So she defeats Galactus.
Nice. I wouldn't expect anything less.
A couple things I like about this comic is one is the kind of self-narration down at the bottom of each page.
Yeah. Yes.
That's really good. She's talking through, explaining things that are happening, and it's all as quirky as she is. And then the other thing, I don't know if you noticed, but early on in the comic, when she's first walking to school with her boxes, I think they parodied the girlfriend meme thing of the guy walking with his girlfriend, looking over his shoulder at another girl.
Oh my god. They did.
I thought that was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's funny.
And then at the end of this issue, they had the letters to the, where they usually have the letters to the editor or letters to the comic. And since it's the first issue with this new team that's writing and drawing, they actually introduced themselves by saying that they had been making this comic for a long time, and Marvel finally asked them, hey, can we publish your comic that you've been stealing our character for? but I think they said that was just a joke, and they were actually employed by Marvel making this. But I thought that was pretty witty.
That's
funny. So that was definitely a good title for her versus her first appearance with Iron Man.
Yeah, I think so too.
I don't know. I like the character design. She looks super quirky. And it's so funny that she just like lived in the Avengers attic, but like spoiler alert, in the next one we found out she has a mom that is like a huge fan of her. And like, why isn't she living with her mom?
Well, in her first appearance, I think she mentioned that squirrels like to eat wiring, like when they're living in your attic and eat up and chew through your wires. Yeah. So then next thing you know, she's living in the attic of the Avengers.
And she wants to like be an Avenger, so.
Yep. And she spends some time with the Great Lake Avengers. That's one of the teams that she's on, I think probably before this series.
Oh.
Because she had moved she was in California when she met Iron Man, and then she moved to New York where she would fight crime in Central Park because, lots of trees. And the Great Lake Avengers were there, and they were getting mugged, and she stopped the mugging. So they're like, hey, you should join our crew.
Nice.
So she joined their crew. And I guess this title was so popular that after 8 issues, they kicked it off again with the Unbeatable Squirrel Girl #1 in the same year, later in the year.
Only our second #1 so far this year.
Yeah, the second #1 so far. So that's the third comic that we read. And it starts off with Squirrel Girl saving a family from an apartment fire, presumably in New York, I guess. And her and her new teammates are helping this family. So we got Squirrel Girl. Of course, we got Tippy Toe. Nancy Whitehead, her roommate, is there, but mostly for moral support and for any kind of computer needs that they may have.
And for knitting.
And then we've got Tomas shows back up.
Yeah, I had to
Mhm.
check that it was the same guy.
As Chipmunk Hunk. So he's got similar skills and abilities as her, but in the form of a chipmunk instead of a squirrel. And then their other friend, Koi Boy, who has big fish eyes. And we didn't really experience his true skills yet, but I'm
Yeah.
guessing they're fish-like of some sort.
In the little intro picture of Chipmunk Hunk, I think it's parodying or referencing Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon, because he's got like the mask and the rose, and that's very
Okay.
Tuxedo Mask-esque.
That's cool. So yeah, so they save this family, and they're after that they're going back to their apartment to celebrate. And I guess this is the start of the second year of her college at ECU, Empire. Is it ESU? Empire State University.
Yeah.
It's one of those. And so I guess Doreen has a new apartment with her bestie. So they're getting it all set up. They've got boxes all over the place, and all the boxes are marked as if they were very lightweight, so that when she's walking around town with 10 boxes, some say that they're filled with helium balloons, some say that they're just air, some say totally empty. And then Doreen must have had just one box that said Amazon.cat, and that was for her cat, Mew. So they're breaking in the new apartment with their friends, Koi Boy and Chipmunk Hunk, which in her closet, she happens to have a special teleporter to get her to the Avengers Island, which I'm not sure how that works, but that's pretty cool.
Whatever works to get you to that food court that's so good there.
Yeah, she raves about their food court. So they've got a portal in the closet. All of a sudden, she remembers that she had a lunch appointment with her parents, which I don't fully understand because it was nighttime when they were going home.
Yeah, I thought that too.
Worried about lunch, but we're just supposed to overlook that. Maybe they partied all night. So her phone goes off, says, "Oh no, I forgot about my lunch date," and she tells her bestie that, "Hey, you need to come with me." And she's like, "Oh, I don't want to meet your parents. They're probably just old, boring people." And she's like, "No, I'm not going to do this alone. You're coming with me." So they rush off to lunch. The only way they can get there fast enough is if Doreen switches into Squirrel Girl form, so that she can carry her friend through the streets. And runs her there, and then while she goes into a dark alley to change back into her regular clothes to go into the restaurant, she sends her friend in to meet her parents in the restaurant, and she says, "Oh, you'll recognize them right away."
I just realized something looking at the restaurant. It's called Bar on Zemo, like Baron Zemo. Isn't that a guy?
Yeah,
Isn't
there's
that
a lot of
Captain
puns.
America movies?
A lot of puns, yep. So Nancy goes into the restaurant, and she's looking into the crowd, and then she sees this lady with a shirt on that says, "I squirreled away a place in my heart for Squirrel Girl." And she recognizes her as just as quick as her mom recognizes Nancy and says, "You must be Nancy." And so they sit and they start chatting. And as it turns out, the mother is very chatty and starts telling a bunch of stories about Doreen as a kid and all the embarrassing stories. And Nancy's like, "Oh, okay, I'm in now. This is good. You're not as boring as I thought you were going to be. Tell me as many embarrassing stories as you can." And so she starts pulling out pictures, baby pictures and stuff. And then finally Squirrel Girl comes in and it's like, "Mom, why are you doing this? You're trying to embarrass me with my friend." and they discuss the fact that she's not a mutant. You know, she got tested as a kid. It has something to do with RNA or DNA, and who really knows? And I think that's just officially canon that something happened to her, but they don't exactly know what. So
Yeah, it said it was something during the mom's pregnancy.
yeah, she either got bit by a radioactive squirrel, or there's something in the trees, or she ate a bad nut or something. But it's definitely not a mutant thing. That's the only thing that they're sure about. So so the mom says, well, I'm not going to eat anything because these restaurants are just too expensive. So Doreen's very upset now. Her mom is making best friends with her best friend, telling all these stories. She's not even going to eat. It's just a waste of her time. So she drags him out of there and says, well, we're just going to go home. So now she switches back into Squirrel Girl costume, grabs both of them, and starts running through the streets. Ends up on the roof of their building. And they're just about to go into the roof access to get into their apartment building. And the door slams open, and this weird looking robot thing with a human brain and human eyeballs carrying a cat and a squirrel pops out and just starts muttering all kinds of nonsense about doomsday and stuff. So Doreen immediately thinks that they're being attacked, and they have Mew and the squirrel Tippy as hostages. So they start battling, and she starts trying to break into his glass helmet that's carrying the head, the brain, and she can't do that. So she tries some other things, tries to rip him apart. Battle has her friend find Deadpool's Guide to Supervillains card number 1011 out of 4,522, which has his name, Brain Drain, and says, hey, see if there's any weaknesses on there. And it talks about his past, about how he was I guess the aliens crashed on Earth and killed him, but tried to rebuild him. So they built him back as best as they could. And then he became a Hydra agent. So this poor unassuming guy just became a Hydra agent and a robot all at the same time. But no weaknesses. So they're still fighting. She's ripping his costume off, which exposes very antiquated electronics and wires. And she's like, okay, we've been here before. Let's just have a squirrel start chewing through this. So the squirrel chews through it, kind of immobilizes him, knocks him out. They drag him into the apartment, and they start discussing things. And they seem to realize, with the help of her mom explaining, you weren't attacked, honey. You just assumed you're being attacked. So, as it turns out, and then Tippy does kind of retell the story to verify it. He just popped out of that Avengers portal for some reason and got freaked out by a cat and a squirrel. So just started carrying them around and muttering strange things about doomsday and whatnot. And that's when he happened to stumble out into the roof access door and ran into them by accident. So now they feel bad. Okay, we've immobilized this guy. So, well, I guess we can rebuild him. So they use their computer skills and use parts from Nancy's phone to rebuild him.
Computer science student totally knows robotics.
Yeah, and soldering and all kinds of stuff. So they replace his old electronics with a new phone. And, well, this is 2015, so it's not a new phone. It's still better than what he had built in the 40s, I guess. And so they put him back together with a very awesome robot repair montage, which included some music that was inferred, but we didn't hear what the music was. And get him back together and start talking to him, and just realize that he was just kind of going crazy because his electronics were getting old and wasn't his fault that he was going crazy. So they got him back on the right path, and he realized he didn't want to be a bad guy. He just wants to be, a walking brain with eyeballs. So that's all good now. They decide the best thing we can do is probably let him start taking classes here so he can learn a new skill in life. So they disguise him as a student to include a button that says human on it. They bring him to the ESU registration and try to get him into classes, and the mom is yelling at this poor kid at the registration office saying,
"What full Karen?
You didn't, going full Karen. You didn't get his application. You didn't get my son's application. Well, then he's just going to have to sit in the classes and audit the classes until you can figure that out." So now he's allowed to sit in the classes. So I think he's going to turn out to be kind of a sidekick throughout this series. Everything's happy, so with a happy ending, of course, we need to celebrate again by going to Avengers Island. So they all jump into the portal and go to Avengers Island to their awesome food court. And we've got, what do we got there? We've got By Odin's Beer. We've got Waffle Program, Soup Thor Salad, and then the Great Cakes Avengers. So we got Chipmunk Hunk, which gets accidentally called Chipmunk Honk. We've got Koi Boy, Maureen, and Doreen is there. And then they enjoy their food and then go get some cake. And then to finish it all off, Doreen is very proud, and she said, "Let's eat nuts and kick butts." That's a catchphrase that she's trying out, which Nancy keeps on talking over. And she's like, "Yeah, well, I'm actually going to get the burger." Just doesn't get it. And that's the end of issue number 1, the second year in college, second series in 1 year. So she seems to be doing pretty good.
Yeah. I like her catchphrases.
Yeah. I like how it's all very, like, it makes fun of Spider-Man a lot. Like, at some point, it's like, oh, there's so many Spider-Mans. Like,
yeah.
Spidered people. And it makes fun of the song and stuff.
And did you guys happen to read any of the letters in the back of this issue?
No, but I saw the pictures. I saw the little cosplays.
Yeah, me too.
Cute little cosplay girl. The guy has actually created a new guy, not to be confused with Squirrel Earl, but he's high-flying squirrel guy with his secret name is Frederick Reddington III, or Fred Red. So he created his own cosplay of his own character.
That's cool.
But yeah, there was the writer had made fun about the fact that they're writing about a character in a large metropolitan area that's got the strengths of a rodent and a utility belt with lots of stuff in it, but she's definitely not a bat. She's not a bat. She's a different rodent. So I thought that was cool.
Yeah, she doesn't have tools in her belt. She has nuts. That's more useful.
Yeah. And apparently 4,522 trading cards. Where does she keep all those?
Nancy carries those.
Yep. But I enjoyed these stories a lot more than I thought I would. I thought it would be like a cute kids type story, but it's closer to Deadpool than anything else. The quirkiness of it, and yeah. I think even at some point Deadpool shows up in the picture and like breaks the fourth wall with her by giving her I think she at some point falls in love with Speedball or something, which is one of the new Warriors, but But to show his backstory, like Deadpool gave her an issue of a Marvel comic that told his story, so she could learn more about him.
Oh, that's cute.
So they're breaking the fourth wall together, or something like that. But yeah, they're good stories, good art, good writing.
This is exactly how I feel when I play my squirrel deck, my magic deck. Just calling down all the squirrels to do my bidding. It's very Squirrel Girl.
You pack your nuts. Pack some nuts
Next
with you.
time I play, I should bring some nuts with me.
Hide your tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Danny actually had this recommendation for us. I don't think she knew what we were in for, but
Nope.
knew
Definitely not the nightmare fuel from the first comic.
Yeah.
Nope. I was not ready for that.
I don't think anybody would be ready for that. But yeah, good recommendation, good stories.
Yep.
And I like how that's the version that the little girl in the letters is cosplaying.
Yeah.
She's got the eye makeup. She's got the gray and brown. That's crazy.
Yep. So I think that's going to wrap up this episode. We'll have to find some more Marvel characters for our features and upcoming episodes. So if anybody has any recommendations for us, feel free to catch us on any of our socials or send an email to podcast@familygeekery.com. But we thank you as always for listening. And until next time, peace out.
Peace out.
And geek out.
Geek out.
Thank you for listening to the Family Geekery podcast. For more information, visit www.familygeekery.com. Don't forget to subscribe at your favorite podcast provider. And until next time, peace out and geek out.